So hello and welcome to this webinar series, Learning with Global Teachers. So we are right now live, uh, but before we begin the sessions, make sure that you have muted your mic, you have turned off your cameras. If you have any questions, you have something, you're facing some problems, put your questions in a chat window and be polite and professional during the call. So today we have very special guest talking about a very unique and interesting topic, and that's why I decided to welcome him in a very innovative way. So Jeff, welcome to India.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be in India. Oh, I love it. I
Yeah,
love
thank
it.
you so much. I was very sure that you will love this. The coding is, it's touching my heart right now. Oh, thank you.
Can I send one right back to you on my screen? Here, I'm going to
Oh,
send
wow.
one right back to you on my screen.
Oh, that's good. That's what the catching point today is also element that attract the attention of listeners tonight. So we are running this webinar series. This is the third session right now. So the first session we had with Carolina from Argentina. Oh, wow. Oh, that's so creative you are.
Right back at you.
Yes, thank you. So I'll just continue myself right now. We have a session with Carolina from Argentina. The last Saturday we had a session with Leo Juki from USA. She talked about her journey with refugee students and how she has empowered them, engaged them, even though they are the refugees. And tonight we have very special guest, Jeff Remington from USA. So he will be talking about the STEM education. So let me give something a little bit idea about what exactly the STEM education is all about. So STEM education is actually a bunch of four subjects. It's science, technology, engineering, and maths. But our host tonight, Mr. Jeff, has very unique idea about empowering and mentorship. Right? Am I right, Jeff?
You are absolutely right. STEM
Yeah.
is a good way to flip the education system worldwide.
Yeah. So it's very new concept here in India, in my state and my district as well. So teachers, even our officers are also very excited to know about this. The agenda for tonight is introduction followed by your presentation. Then we will have a question and answer session. And at the last, we will conclude our webinar. So we have very special guest tonight, Mr. Sanjay Kumar Rathod. He is a district education officer here in Maharashtra, in my district. Me, Ranjit, with my co-host Manju Chilla. She is from Sun City School, Gurgaon, Delhi, New Delhi, and Mr. Jeff Remington from USA. So I welcome. This is last a brief biodata about Mr. Jeff. So Jeff has enthusiastically championed the power of science, technology, education, and mentorship as a means to improving people's lives at the ground. So he has received numerous awards at the local, state, national, and international level for his contributions and innovations in education. So what exactly Jeff is doing? Here is a short video about his work. The video doesn't have any audio. Just look at what exactly his students are doing and what exactly the STEM education is all about. Have a look at this video. So some you can see some microbaits are there. Same. So what I did the today morning, I used some microbaits to welcome Mr. Jeff. So Jeff is actually already using these stuff in his school. And look how students are, creating very innovative and solutions to the problems. So Jeff, we'll be talking about all these his innovative projects. Jeff,
Yes.
so over to you now.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
I can. That's great. That's great. Okay. Can you advance to the next slide, please, Rajit?
Okay, here it is.
Thank you. Okay. So what is STEM? Why is it important? Well, STEM is really important because of jobs. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us. So we've been through many industrial revolutions. The current one right now is the big shift that we're all seeing in automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, machine thinking. And I would say now more than ever, in light of COVID-19, this is really, I think, the direction where a lot of companies are going to go. Robots don't have to worry about viruses. They can work nonstop. So you may think, will there be jobs for me in the future? There will. The jobs will be the people that are designing these types of materials. So Rajit, I'm going to have you play that video. If you could possibly play that video there, the future of work. So as you watch this video, I want you to look for human beings. You won't see many.
Display sir, display sir, please request all to mute their microphones.
Any audio with the video? So the video is showing automation of farming, automation of construction. This is a house that's being 3D printed with cement or concrete. That house was built in 24 hours, 3D printed, faster than any humans can work. Here's a robot automating bricklaying. Again, it can work in all kinds of weather, 24/7. It does not get sick, doesn't call off. Here is a truck, a lorry, totally automated, driverless truck. This is a Amazon store in the United States that has no employees working there. Everything is automated. Again, when you think about stores in the current pandemic crisis, you wouldn't want to have a lot of people around. These stores would do that. Here's Amazon's automated drone system. Again, you talk about pandemics and having drivers at risk. Use a drone to do that. Restaurants are becoming more and more automated. You've probably gone to a restaurant where you don't even interact with a human. You're making all your recommendations or menu items on the screen. Robotic surgery allows doctors in certain parts of the world to do operations in other parts of the world. These are quotes that are just showing how various jobs are being replaced, lawyers possibly being replaced with artificial intelligence. So many things. How fast will things change? Well, in New York City in 1900, there was just one single car in the New York City Easter Parade. A few years later, cars were the dominant form of transportation. Horses were no longer there. And that's when things move slowly. This is just showing you all the automation that that is just totally taking over the globe. Will our children be ready? That's going to be our task. Can we prepare our students for this world? Well, STEM education can certainly do that. It can certainly help us with workforce development. Okay, thank you, Rajit. Can you go to the next slide, please? One more. Perfect. Okay, so how is this automation working? Well, here is a case I believe this is in England possibly, where there is a robot that can pick, I believe it's raspberries, far quicker than any human workers possibly could do. And it can work 24/7. You don't have to worry about shifts. You don't have to worry about people getting sick or pandemics. It can work regardless of whatever the environment is. If you're curious, will my job be taken away? I mean, we're all teachers. I think we're pretty well set. But there is the link at the bottom of the screen there that says, will robots take my job? So when I type in an agricultural worker, or an agricultural harvester, it says my job is doomed in the future because automation will eventually take over those jobs. And right now we've got a huge problem in Europe where we have some crops that need to be harvested, but we can't get workers because of the pandemic. These robots could work regardless. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Can you see the next slide?
No, it's still, for me, it's still the same. Up, let's go back one. There might be a lag over here. It's a long way. I think we're about 10,000 miles apart. I wish I was getting Emirates Air Miles for this.
Let's get started with this. What is STEM?
Yeah. So what is STEM? So if if you're not sure what STEM is all about, some driving questions you should have as a classroom teacher is, where are you at with STEM teaching and where do you need to go? STEM teaching is a mindset. It's not just science, technology, engineering, and math, but it's a mindset. Rajit, if you could possibly click on that, that's a video, and I will try and narrate the video. Thank you. So they are saying, what is STEM? So STEM is really these traditional subjects of science, technology, engineering, and math, but it really is, instead of teaching them separately, it's really trying to combine those to show in the real world all those different subjects are combined. We teach in a school system in which we've separated those subjects out and really have been teaching to tests that aren't necessarily realistic to what real world applications are. STEM is all about joining those together. So there it's showing that they're normally taught in separate rooms in a school. So there are movements like the Next Generation Science Standards that really are doing a lot of work to integrate those subject areas. So regardless of what you teach, think about how you can integrate more subjects, more of those subjects together in a type of authentic learning. So as this is new, we have to figure out not only how can we integrate that, but explaining to students the nuances of why we want to integrate these subjects. So in order to build a wind farm, we've got to implement some mathematics, we've got to implement some science, some technology, and some engineering to actually build it. So we really want to try and teach kids, give kids experience where they have to blend all those subjects together. And in a little bit, when I show you, again, the box top mini golf courses that we do, it gives them that experience. So really this video right here is just showing how are we going to do that? What are some ways in which we can do that? And it's really all about balancing traditional learning with hands-on connected learning. So most of us around the world are kind of tied to national tests and our performance on those national tests. And I'm not minimizing that, that's very important. But really, when you think about real world application and jobs, teaching to those tests aren't necessarily what the reality of work is that many of us experience around the world. So STEM is trying to do that. Okay, Ranjit, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, let's try the next one.
Yeah. Can you see this next
Okay,
slide?
yes, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. In these next series of slides, we're going to do sort of a rhetorical answer. So these slides ask a question: which number below would represent a STEM classroom? So number one would be traditional desks in a row where students really can't move around and they are just sitting there learning. Picture number two is the one showing flexible grouping and movement and socialization of students and collaboration. So obviously, two is the STEM classroom, but unfortunately for most of us in the world, one would be the classrooms that we're currently in. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see what the next slide looks like. Again, which is more like STEM learning? The one on the left, which we're teaching kids to be ready to get one right answer per question on a test. We call that convergent thinking, single solution approach. Or do we want to have kids be divergent thinkers, thinking that there's multiple solution approaches to a problem? Obviously, number two is what STEM really tries to do, but obviously number one is what most of us around the world are kind of stuck in. Great, next slide, please. Again, classroom one and classroom two. In classroom one, the teacher is the guide on the side. So the teacher is a facilitator of a learning, but not the focus of the learning. In picture two, there you have a teacher doing a formal lecture to a class of students that are not very engaged. Two would be the STEM type of learning. One would be the STEM type of learning. Two would be the traditional learning. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Again, which number below would represent a STEM class? So picture number one is just a direct worksheet, no flexibility in how the students present their knowledge. The teacher frames, this is how you're going to show me that you've learned. But step two, or picture two, is really one that's more STEM. Teachers have a lot of flexibility in having the students demonstrate how they feel most comfortable in demonstrating their knowledge. So flexible agency of choice of how your students are going to present to you what they've learned. And you're going to find, kids will show you so much more when they have control of how they share their learning. This next slide here, which number will represent a STEM classroom? So picture number one is empathetic learning. Picture number two is egocentric learning. Most of us right now are in egocentric learning in our school systems, and that's where kids are competing against other kids for class rank, for getting into colleges, getting into schools. So there's a lot of competition where the students want to do whatever they can to, push forward to be the best result. Where we want to try and move students is empathetic collaborative learning, where students are helping each other learn, helping each other improve. Great, next slide, please. So picture number one is what we like to call in the United States, since we're a big agriculture country, siloed learning. Silos are where we would keep grain and all that, but those silos are separated. That's an analogy for different subject areas, that we teach math separately, science separately, English separately. We never really try and make connections between those. So that's traditional learning. Picture number two is what we want to do in STEM, make connections between other subjects. We call that cross-cutting connections. Great. Next slide right here. Picture one, learning for an assessment. Picture two, learning to solve real-world problems. STEM is more about picture two. And obviously, with the pandemic we all find ourselves in, man, we really want that STEM learning to be developing problem solvers and not one right answer on a test solvers. Next question, next slide, please. Picture one shows traditional classroom, textbook, worksheet, individual work. That's traditional learning. We want to move more towards picture number two, which is collaborative, technology-driven learning in a classroom. Great, next slide, please. Thanks. Picture number one shows teaching kids about these high-tech fourth industrial revolution STEM jobs that happen to be out there as part of their regular teaching curriculum. Picture number two shows having a career counselor do the teaching of careers. We really, in STEM, part of STEM is teaching kids about these amazing careers that are out there. And most schools traditionally have a separate class about careers. STEM is all about incorporating careers and workforce development within the context of the course. Thank you. Next slide, please. What should represent a STEM classroom? So picture number one is just a traditional test where it's a multiple choice test, and those are assessing what's easily measured. So these big standardized tests that our governments have for us are very easy to measure, but they're not realistic. They don't really show the kinds of learning that our students really need in real world jobs. Picture number two shows real world application where students are really showing authentic learning for a collaborative project that they've done. Next slide, please. Thanks. So a STEM learning environment. This is from a very famous thinker in the United States, an entrepreneur, a venture capitalist, and now an education advocate called Ted Dintersmith. It is the essence of our humanity to create, to invent, and to make our world better. So there you see a picture of education in the early 1900s, and it's just desks and rows. In the early 2000s, even still into today, desks still in rows. What's our future hope? Our future hope is that kids are broken away from the chains of the desk and are really doing collaborative problem-solving work to help solve the problems we find ourselves in: global warming, poverty, disease, etc. Slide, please. So elements that are important to STEM teaching. Subject integration, absolutely. So whatever subject you teach, can you integrate other aspects of other subjects in there? Especially, you know, language arts, communication is very important, along with science, technology, engineering, and math. The arts, some people call it STEM, some people call it STEAM. It's important to have deep understanding through authentic learning experiences. We want to get away from teaching to the test. When we teach to the test, the learning is shallow. But if we give kids authentic hands-on experiences, the learning is much deeper. It makes deeper neural connections. The kids remember it more. We want to have students being allowed to be flexible in demonstrating how they learn something. So not just necessarily a worksheet or a test, but can they do a presentation? Growth mindset and growth skills. This is something, no matter what you teach, you can implement this. And it would be certainly something to Google if you're unfamiliar with growth mindset. It really is what we would call in America emotional intelligence, like the ability to be able to navigate through difficult situations. We call this also the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, innovation, divergent thinking, and entrepreneurship. Design thinking is an important element. That's engineering with empathy, like having the kids go through the process of making mistakes and building a product to solve a problem or a process. And can they do it with empathy? Can they do it with understanding for their fellow man? And then computational thinking. That's the thinking that can work in any computer system or coding. And you don't have to be a computer teacher to do this. So I'd recommend that you Google computational thinking and study up on it. There's 4 parts to it: decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, and what we call algorithm design. But they're all problem-solving skills that are essential. Next slide, please. So how did this come to my classroom? So on the left is really like what my classroom was like 30 years ago when I started teaching. A lot of teaching in rows. I used to do a lot of demonstrations. There's a picture of me set my hand on fire. I used to try and be sort of like a showman or a magician, and I would do what we would call edutainment, try and entertain the kids. And did they like seeing the show? They did. Did they learn a lot from it? I'm not sure they really did, because they were just spectators. They weren't really involved. So the problem was moving from the 1990s 5x5 desk classrooms that are non-authentic, that are driven by high stakes tests and are teacher-centered. The solution is to try and learn and implement authentic methods of instruction, which STEM will do, that drive student-centered engagement, and then trying to invite other teachers to share in this journey and to see the journey. When the kids get involved in this, they love it so much that they start talking about it with other teachers, and other teachers slowly start to become inspired to try and shift their teaching into more of this type of a style. Next slide, please. So this would be this was the opening video. So let me explain this project. So I teach STEM to 930 students every year. And when my students first come to my class, I arrange them based on a performance profile, a STEM type profile, or maybe a personality profile. So when I get their profiles and their multiple intelligences, I place them in groups based on differing strengths. So they don't group with their friends. They group with people that to them are strangers, but have different opinions and different strengths. That's really to show them what it's like in the real world. In the real world, we don't get to choose our friends that we want to work with. We've got to work with people that are divergent thinkers from us, and we've got to learn how to collaborate and communicate and get that done. So when I first put them in groups, students don't want to communicate with each other too much because it's not their friends. But then once we get going, we give them tasks. We have them become entrepreneurs. They form these companies that build what we call box top golf courses. So we take copy paper boxes, we give them an empty copy paper box. We have each group partner with another group, and they build a golf course to another group's specifications. So it's that empathetic engineering. They learn what their clients want. They build a course for that. They engineer the course to their client specifications. All courses have to have something called an LED pressure sensor in there. That's the light that lights up when the ball goes in the hole. They all have to have some sort of a coded message and song playing on the little microbit keyboard, and then anything else that's related to it. And then they deliver them back to their customers, and the customers give them feedback. We've also done in the past, as you see on this slide, something called a grasshopper field study, where we have about, I think in this case, 300 kids. We have them out in a field, and then we have them collect and tag grasshoppers, which would be similar to locusts. And while they're collecting and tagging them, we destroy one of the habitats of the grasshoppers, we re-release it, and then we study the effects that man has on habitat alteration and what it does to populations. So again, real world application of STEM problems. So you may say you might be coming from a part of India that's very, very rural and very poor. We've implemented systems like this in different parts of the world. We've applied STEM in Haiti. Haiti is a very far distance away from India, so you may not be too familiar with Haiti. Haiti is a small Caribbean nation. It is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So as you see in these pictures, you can see the abject poverty that happens to be there. Haiti is really born from a French education tradition. And Haiti, for the most part, is really governed by nationalized tests and convergent thinking. We have really tried at some of the schools there to flip that around. We've done teacher training and we've bought science equipment, technology labs, things like that. We've brought Intel Corporation in to help coach teachers and students to think outside the box. And even though most of the education in Haiti and even at our schools is still pretty traditional, the teachers at the schools we work with, the students at the schools we work with, do have a regular experience with what this STEM type of learning is all about, as you can see in the pictures. And our students through the years have collaborated with them. So what has it done for us and for them in Haiti? So we were recognized by the ambassador to Haiti at the Haitian embassy for our project and what's done. If you look in the center, you'll see a small picture of Haitian children. Those were students we started the program with when they were in 7th grade. And those original students from 7th grade, now they are in their early 20s. And we have one of our stars is Madsen. Madsen created from our technology lab in coding that he learned. He created a startup that's a healthcare startup in Haiti that is actually at the forefront in helping fight the COVID-19 epidemic there, which is amazing. And then we have other students that have graduated to become entrepreneurs and study more technology. So I'd like to thank you. Let's make the world STEM stronger together. If you have any questions, you can certainly ask me those questions now, but my contact information is on that last slide. And I also have 2 links there to some amazing resources to get your feet wet into STEM. One is from STEM Revolution, and the other one is from the National Science Teaching Association. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful and very interesting session you had. What I understood from your presentation is that STEM is all about the flexible classrooms, divergent thinking, and learning through the cross curriculum. You don't need that type of a stuff or that type of a huge laboratories full of apparatus. You just need that approach
Yes.
in your mindset. STEM is not about teaching the whole subject. It's all about the mindset in your class, in your mind to interlink those subject. It's all about that. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. So no matter what you're teaching, no matter where you're at, no matter how much of a budget you have for resources, anybody could incorporate this STEM teaching.
That's a great one. So thank you so much. We have now a session for question and answers. So let's see if you have any questions in the chat window. Let me see it. Okay. So Gudip is okay. So Nitin is asking where he could find the STEM activities for his students. So where
Yes.
do they wanted
For
to,
those, the 2 links on my last slide have loads of resources on where you can find activities for any situation.
Okay, let me just copy those links and share in a chat window. Let me. That's a good question, Nitin, you asked.
Also, if you'd want to follow me on Twitter, I usually try and post out daily different activities and different sorts of information regarding STEM.
Yeah, that's a good one. I will just share your information as well. We have another questions from Yaduna. Can we teach any subject with STEM classroom?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So 3 of my colleagues that I teach with are superstars. The 3 of them teach music, but they really take a STEM-based approach to music. They engineer music pieces. They engineer music pieces through technology, or they engineer music pieces just as they are. At our high school level, students build guitars, and then through music, they learn how to play the guitars they build. So we have an art teacher who does a whole lot of work with graphic design and how it takes a STEM approach to that. So shout out to Mr. Madonna, Mr. Kurtz, Mr. Packard Howie, and Ms. Farrell. They are all super teachers in the arts that are really incorporating STEM every day in what they do.
Okay, so the next question is how it will help assessing students authentically. So if we try to adopt that STEM mindset in as an educator, so how we
Yes.
can assess the teachers' learning process? So is there any
Yes.
different tool we need to adopt to evaluate what exactly students are learning or not?
So what's really helpful in a lot of cases are rubrics, because they're you can use the combination of assessments of traditional just to find knowledge, but rubrics are often good. So my students, most of their knowledge, they do take some tests. So sure, we still have that element in there, but my students take videos of their work, presentations of their work, and there's rubrics that I use to help evaluate how well they've done. And if you just Google rubrics for educational projects or problem-based learning, you'll see there's lots of resources out there for that.
Okay, okay. The next question is this good for starting learners? Can we use STEM activity for them? He may be talking about, grade 1 or 2
Yes.
students. So it is
Yes.
good for them.
It is very good for them. It can be very, very simple. Can you have them build a playground for a class pet?
So how things can be used in a low resource classroom?
So do you have some simple equipment in your classroom that you could use to build something, you know, again, for a class matter, lots of ways to do this.
Okay, okay. Anyone? Anyone want to ask a question? Rathod sir?
Hello.
Yes?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello. Hello, Mr. J.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. I am teaching in Mumbai, and this year we are incorporating. That means we are starting the STEM activities. So we have chalked out a plan of doing something different for the students on a larger scale. So we have just made a proposal. Most of the things are required. Like when we talk about, when we say a science exhibition, so when science exhibitions are kept, means
I'm
our
lost.
understanding.
There's background noise. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah. Oh. Can you just try to put your question in a chat window so that I could ask him?
Okay.
Hello.
Yes?
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm Harsha Chavan from Mumbai. I'm working in a regional academic authority Mumbai as an English subject assistant. And as an educator, we have to work and adopt some clusters for the teaching learning process and any research work also. So for that purpose, if we have to implement such STEM activities there, then how we can execute it? Means for one cluster, if we have to adopt this activity, then how we can execute it? Would you
How
like to
can you
guide me?
how can you adapt an existing activity that you do?
Means for the with adaptation for the cluster means we have to adapt a cluster for any research work.
So, Jeff,
So
what
for that
exactly she
purpose,
wanted to tell you? Jeff,
I'm
let me
sorry,
just
Regina.
explain.
Again, there's a lot of background.
Okay, Jeff, what exactly she wanted to tell you? Am I audible there?
Hello?
Jeff, are you getting my voice?
Yeah, I have a lot of background noise. I'm having a hard time hearing.
I still ask everyone, please mute yourself so that our guest could get the answers and he could hear better way. So what exactly that teacher was asking you as a researcher, she wants to look at the larger scale, not just the individual classrooms. So she manages a class like 20 or 30 classrooms at a time, or
Yes,
20 or 30 schools at a time. So
yes.
while at the role, her role is, you can call it as a much more scaled up. So how exactly is she gonna do if she wanted to, replicate the same STEM model in those 20 or 30 school at a time? So what should be the strategy? What should be her strategy to implement the STEM education?
Okay, so I'm going to put in the chat box a system that's created here in our country that helps schools navigate that. Just give me 1 second, and I'll put that in the chat box.
Okay. So you can type in a chat box as well if you have any link or anything you want to share with them as well. A very interesting question, Jeff. Should the learners be given training for this? It's very interesting.
Yes, right. It's a whole system approach to that. I'm going to put a link in here. So there's two organizations that I have worked with. One's called the Carnegie Science Center, and the other one is STEM Revolution.
Hello.
They are both organizations that help move whole countries or systems to get better at how to large scale implement STEM. So I put both of those in both links to that in the chat box, that you can look at them, explore them. There's contact information there. A lot of them, it's first you're going to start with an assessment. You're going to assess where we currently at in our school system. What are steps we need to take to get from not teaching any STEM to incorporating STEM on a regular basis?
Okay, that's a good question. And thank you so much, Jeff. We are actually running out of time. Yes, is there any question?
Hello. Hello. Good evening, sir. Hello.
Good evening. I'm good. I'm still having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, that's why I'm just trying. So thank you so much. It's time to thank you and the entire team here who attended this session. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Sir, may I?
And
Sir,
yeah,
I return my question on chat box. How to exactly use STEM activity for brainy student? Please.
yes. So he had
Yeah.
shared a link. He has actually shared a link in a chat box. Please go through that link, and there you will find out, hundreds of activities for early learners and the middle school students and high school students. So you just go through that chat window.
Sir, hello.
Okay. Thank.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Ranjit, I would like to ask one question.
Yes, please, sir.
Jay, please can you explain me this project STEM is restricted to your school only, or government is implementing it? This is one question. And how much freedom teacher have to implement any innovative ideas on themselves?
Ranjit, could you repeat that for me?
Sir, could you please repeat the questions?
First question is, STEM is means the project STEM is restricted to yourself only, or government is implementing it massively?
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, the projects that I showed from my school, are they specific to my school, or could anyone use them? They're not specific to my school, and really both of those projects are kind of entrepreneurial. They're just, this is the wonderful thing about STEM. You could have an idea, because both of those were just ideas that I had by seeing other people do similar things and just created those projects. I always try and think, what would students really love to do? And I ask students, try and get empathy from them. What are some things they enjoy? And then build a project around that. They all love golfing. In our country, they call it mini golfing. And they like being outdoors catching bugs. So that's really how those things came about.
Yeah, his intention is that whether you are implementing it or government has started to implement that STEM education. That's what he's concerning about.
Okay, yes. So it's interesting because we work with countries all over the world. Some countries that are not democracies, if the government is interested in implementing STEM education for their economy, everybody's on board. India is the largest democracy. The US is a very large democracy. Democracies are great, but sometimes it's hard to get everybody on board on value of education initiatives. So
Okay,
it is
and the next question, sir?
Yeah.
Next one is, how much freedom does teacher have to implement any project?
Okay, so if just imagine that teacher has now decided to go for the STEM education. So whether
Yes.
he had some sort of freedom to to re-innovate, rethink, or redesign the activities, or he should have to go through the set of activities and just try to implement. Whether he had some sort of freedom to go through it, or just try to implement it. What is your call?
Or can he implement his innovative ideas?
Whether let's take example right now. I'm a teacher and as I decided to go for the STEM education. So I'm going for the STEM activities, right? Jeff, are you getting my voice?
No, I'm still getting a lot of feedback. I have a hard time hearing. Can you,
Okay.
if you don't mind, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'll repeat for you. My question is that if a teacher decided to go for the STEM education and he will go for the STEM activities, whether he had some sort of freedom to rethink, redesign those activities, or he just has to implement it.
Okay, so the question is, would he have to reinvent something, or could he just take something existing and go from there? Really, the thing about STEM is it's beautiful. You can use your own creativity to take something that you currently are teaching that's traditional and think, how could I make this more interactive and engaging for students? How can I implement STEM thinking into this? Or you can go to those resources I sent on the link and look for something brand new. There's a great one that was just put up there, PBL Works, in the chat box. That is a phenomenal website that will give you loads and loads of ideas as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for asking him. And he is actually our education officer. That's why he is asking you to, he's looking at the district level, whether he wants to scale up this idea. So he was thinking on that line. That's why
Hello.
he's very interested.
Perfect.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
Ranjit,
Hello.
can I ask?
Hello.
हा साहेब काही प्रश्न आहे अजून तुमचा?
नाही काही नाही ठीक आहे. Okay, we'll discuss afterwards.
Yeah,
So Jeff, all right,
Ranjit
thank
ji,
you so much for joining
Ranjit,
us. We will
Ranjit ji,
continue our discussion.
I have a small request.
So Jeff, now you can leave us, and I will continue with these teachers.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
thank you.
Sir, just wait a minute. Can I